friendos, Newbornkilik here, welcoming you back to the Legend of Zelda Mythbusters. Now today we're going to be taking a look at 4 myths, and I promise it won't take quite as long as last time. I'm not going to be sitting here for 40 minutes, drinking Poe souls like we did in the last episode, which interesting results. Some things I definitely didn't know myself were definitely uncovered in that episode, so if you haven't seen it, go check it out. But today, we're going to start off with more crouch stab shenanigans. If you do happen to enjoy the video, please do consider hitting that subscribe button or that like button and ringing the bell, most importantly of all, because if you don't, well then you're basically not subscribed at all, now are you? Getting back on track, we're going to start off with the myth that once you load up a file of Ocarina of Time, your crouch stab, which as we established before, is the last value of attack that you use. In this case, since you have not used an attack yet, your first crouch stab, or any crouch stab before you do any type of other attack, will be the same strength as the KOKIRI sword standard slice. But of course, this is a very simple one to test, so let's just test it. So to test this myth, what we're going to do is load up an old file of Ocarina of Time. We're going to switch over to the Big Oron sword, and in theory, our Big Oron sword should be very... That's really annoying. Oops. I suppose that's kinda what happens when you glitch the game out all the time. You're probably gonna have some save files laying around that, aren't exactly kosher. Then it is true that we will load up the Nugget. Now, of course, this is my Ocarina of Time randomizer file, but it should be fine for our testing. And for those of you that don't know, we can actually fight the Redead here in Castletown, and they can't actually stun us. For whatever reason, they just don't have the ability to. They're really kind of not much of a threat anyway. I mean, they can damage you, but honestly, the odds of that happening are quite low. So we're going to get ourselves into position and just stab up this bad boy right here and just kind of see how many slices it takes with the standard crouch stab here. As you can see already, we're doing so much less damage. I don't even need to count to know that that is an incredibly, a hilariously low number. So standard slashes here is already going to be 1, 2. It's obvious that there's some funny business here as far as values. Don't come over here next to me, my boy. I'm not looking to get sassed up by you. But the real question is, what is that value? Is that 1 damage, the KOKIRI slice? So I guess that's something we'll have to find out. So I know you're thinking, Newbornkilik, this is weird. Why are you watching this cutscene? One of the problems with using codes and stuff to actually project yourself further into the game is that the cutscenes sometimes just aren't registered as triggered. So there's a good chance that I'm gonna see 2 or 3 cutscenes here just so that I can get back to being a kid. Not excited about that. Luckily, it is very easy to find Redead actually just under KOKIRI Village, which is definitely comforting for the people that live here. If you don't know, there's actually a secret grotto here, which I absolutely hate the fact that there are 2 Redead just chilling, just are already dead. Now, luckily, there is no shortage of Redead in the Hyrule Kingdom. We can just go into the royal family's grave here, and, well, unfortunately, we're going to be bombarded by quite a few of the undead lovelies that we definitely love. Love to hate, you know what I'm saying? However, we are going to systematically destroy them in a fit of panic, most likely, but hey, systematically destroyed and in a fit of panic kinda go hand in hand. So swinging as madly as we can, of course, we will find out 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 dead. We'll go ahead and try to fight another one here, of course, but I think that's basically proof. So this does actually seem to confirm that when you load up an old game of Ocarina of Time, that your crouch stab doesn't really have a value to look into, so you get the default KOKIRI sword value, which is definitely a real waste of real estate. So if you're gonna use some crouch stabs, be sure to, at minimum, as an adult Link, at minimum, queue up something else. Now, this actually came up in the Ocarina of Time randomizer playthrough that we're doing over on the gameplay channel. I did a save warp out and took out my Big Oron sword and tried to do a crouch stab on one of the blue Tektites in the water temple. It took 4 hits, which is bonkers in my opinion. You may as well be battering them with a pillow, let's be completely honest, or a butter knife. The KOKIRI sword always kind of reminded me of a butter knife. I want it as a butter knife now, actually. Let's make that happen. Next up, we have the idea of if you use, say, a jump slash with the Big Oron Sword, which is, of course, Big Oron Sword, base value times 2 because you're doing a jump slash. That's just how damage works in Ocarina of Time, trust me. When you go back to being a child, your crouch stab will actually do that same amount of damage. So crouch stab attack values actually go from one sword to the next, so to say. Now everyone kind of knows that you can, use a Deku Stick, queue up that, and then your crouch stabs will do as much as a Deku Stick hit would do, which ironically is more. The Deku Stick actually does the same amount of damage as the Master Sword standard hits. But that's beside the point. We're gonna go ahead and see if the crouch stab for little old child Link does the same amount of damage as a jump slash, because that is the last attack we queued up. If you recall, the STAL-CHILDREN in Hyrule Field at nighttime as a child are 2-hit KO'd by the KOKIRI sword. So, in theory, if this is true, we should be able to one-hit KO with a lot of overflow damage, a lot of overkill, but we'll know that it's at least doing more damage if we one-hit KO it. Moment of truth, if this is a one-hit KO, we're good to go. So it seems as if attack values do not transfer between adult and child. Good to know, I suppose. And with that, we are off to our third myth, probably the spookiest one of them all. If you burn the wraps off of a Gibdo, you're basically left with a Redead. I believe this is actually a reference to, in the older games, the Gibdo, naturally you can't turn them into Redead, but they are weak to fire. The Gibdo are oftentimes seen as more powerful versions of the Redead, at least they're less common. Think of how many Redead you've seen. Now think of how many Gibdo you've seen. Just saying, you've probably seen a lot more Redead. This is an exceedingly simple one to test, and all we have to do is come to our best friend here, the Shadow Temple, and burn these bad boys. Now, of course, they're not gonna like us doing that. I don't really care for this. I was so confident this one was true, but the gameplay doesn't lie. We used Din's Fire on these bad boys, and they didn't burn off any wraps at all. They just kinda died. They are still very weak to fire, that is definitely true, but the wraps were not burnt off. It should be noted that I did try it with all of the fire type moves, mainly being the Din's Fire and the fire arrows. Fire arrows don't actually even damage the Gibdo, which was pretty surprising because in most of the other games, they're actually weak to fire. They are weak to Din's Fire, but they're also weak to just being cut a lot. Just throwing it out there. Bonus myth. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to do a bonus myth every single time, but if it comes up organically, I'm gonna keep putting bonus myth in. That is the myth that Gibdo are actually stronger than Redeads, as in it will take more hits to kill. But the real question, is this true? Well, we can find out with our handy dandy Master Sword. If you've been keeping up with my videos, you would know that the Master Sword essentially does 2 damage, which is double the KOKIRI sword. The Big Oron Sword does double that, doing 4 damage, quote-unquote, total. So, it should take 4 hits with the Master Sword to defeat a Redead and Gibdo, assuming they have the same health pool. Or, if they don't have the same health pool, then it'll take more to kill a Gibdo. So what I'm basically saying by busting that little bonus myth is stop being so afraid of Gibdo. Okay? They're just as spooky, just as scary, just as skeleton-y. Well, on the inside, under the wraps and decaying flesh, there is a skeleton under there somewhere, but that's beside the point. What we're getting at is that, unfortunately, it is busted. They are just as weak as the standard Redead. So this brings us to our 4th myth, and that is the myth that when you have the cutscene queued up for Zelda to escape, no STAL-CHILDREN will attack you near the gates. So clearly the STAL-CHILDREN are out and looking to play, but the real question is, once we get close to the castle gates, will they still attack us? So we're nearing the castle gates, now all we have to do is make it nighttime and see if we get attacked, or if there's maybe a buffer around the loading zone that allows them to not spawn. And we're clearly, okay, we are being attacked actually, so that's interesting, but it took them an awfully long time to attack. I wonder what happens to them once we enter the cutscene. I would assume they just disappear, but I do really want to get them in the shot. So the cutscene's probably going to trigger here pretty soon. I'm guessing they're just going to vanish, but never know. Unfortunately, our 4th and final myth for today is busted, but I did want to take a look at it. After all, there's only one time in the game when you would be able to test this out, so I wanted to just double check. I kind of thought maybe because, you know, there was an important cutscene happening that maybe there wouldn't be anything going on here. STAL-CHILDREN will spawn in Hyrule Field and will try to tear your face off, no matter if Ganondorf is coming through or not. And with that, our final myth of the day is busted. All but one of these myths have been busted today, which is well, that's a little bit disappointing, but hey, we cleared up some misconceptions and whatnot, which is always a wonderful thing. Anyway, thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. It does help me out an awful lot. Of course, these videos do take a bit of effort to make, so any kind of support is appreciated. And if you want to be updated on when I upload, definitely do be sure to hit that subscribe button and the bell, or else if you don't hit the bell, you're basically not going to be notified, so hit the bell. You can also join the Discord and talk to some really cool people. That's another way to get notified. If you don't want to hit that bell if you're allergic, you know, to bell-shaped objects, well then, you know, Discord's probably a better option for you. Anyway, leave your ideas for future Mythbusters down below. I'm Newbornkilik, and I will see you in the next one. I'm out.